Shalom, shalom. Davon Mays here with Clouds of Torah, and today we're going to continue Why I Left Christianity, Part 6. Jesus died in vain according to Paul, based on Galatians 2:21. So I'm doing this by the amount of slides. So a lot of the videos say Part 6, but if you look in the description, it'll tell you what slides I'm dealing with. So these are slides 35 through 52. So let's dive right into this. For each shall bear his own load. Now that doesn't sound very much like Christian doctrine. If Jesus died for you, then why shall each bear his own load? This is something that you're gonna have to, work out based on how you look at Paul. So Galatians 6:4-5 says, "But let each one examine his own work. If you're not judged by your work and only by your faith, why is he saying this? And then he will have rejoicing in himself alone and not in another, for each one shall bear his own load." But in Galatians 6:2, it says, "Bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ." So is it bear your own load or bear each other's loads and fulfill the law of Christ? So that seems more of a Christian doctrine concerning if Jesus died for you, then you don't really die for other people, but you bear their burdens. But in Galatians 6:5, he says, "For each shall bear his own load." Then can Jesus die for you if you bear your own load? And if you bear one another's burden once, do you stop? If you do it one time, is that enough? Why am I asking this? Because there's something that happens when people read the New Testament to make excuses. It says in Galatians 6:2, "Bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ." So if you fulfill it, let's say you did it once. Do you fulfill it? Does that mean you don't have to do it again? Why am I asking this? Matthew 5:17 has been misused by Christians who don't want to keep the law. Now, there's a lot of Christians that are Torah observant, just like the original Christians were Torah observant Jews. You see that in Acts 21. It says there are myriads of Jews who are zealous for the law. Myriads of believers that are Jews that are zealous for the law. So in Matthew 5:17, it says, "Do not think that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill." So the average Christian will say, well, if he fulfilled it, that means I don't have to do it. But there's many things you got to keep doing. For instance, 3 times a year, each Jew had to go observe a festival in Jerusalem. So if Jesus did this, let's say at his bar mitzvah, right? He observed those 3 times a year. He had to go up there. He fulfilled that the one time. Excuse me. Does that mean for the rest of his life, he didn't have to do that? Right? You see what I'm saying? If it's a commandment to go up there 3 times a year and he did it once, does that mean he didn't have to do it anymore? Or what, is that something that happens he has to do yearly? So just because you keep the commandment one time and you fulfilled it that time doesn't mean you don't have to do it anymore. Like if giving tithes, right? If you gave tithes one time, did you fulfill the commandment? Does that mean you're exempt for the rest of your life from giving tithes? Tell that to your pastor. Tell your pastor, I'm a new member. I gave my tithes the first day I came. I fulfilled that. And see what he says to you. See if that works. So if you're bearing one another's burdens and fulfill the law of Christ, that means you have to keep doing it. Right? But if you're bearing other people's burdens, how does that work if it says for each shall bear his own load? So y'all work out what Paul is actually saying there. Paul was obligated to keep the whole law. According to him, Galatians 6:15, "For in Christ Jesus neither circumcision nor uncircumcision avails anything but a new creation." So on one hand, Paul's kind of basically downplaying circumcision, right? But what does the Torah say? Genesis 17:14. And the uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. So it sounds like it's a big deal in the Torah, but Paul says, circumcision, no circumcision. It don't really mean too much. It avails, it doesn't avail anything, right? Galatians 5:3. And I testify again to every man who becomes circumcised that he is a debtor to keep the whole law. He's a debtor to keep the whole law. Philippians 3:5-6. Circumcised the 8th day of the stock of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of the Hebrews, concerning the law, a Pharisee, concerning zeal, persecuting the church, concerning the righteousness which is in the law, blameless. So right here, Paul tells you the righteousness which is in the law makes you blameless. That completely goes against Galatians 2:21. But he's every man who becomes circumcised, he's obligated to keep the whole law. He says you're a debtor to keep the whole law. So Paul tells you he was circumcised the 8th day, a Hebrew of Hebrews, from the tribe of Benjamin. He's bragging, right? Romans 8:2. For the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus has made me free from the law of sin and death. So now Paul's saying, I can kind of do whatever I want. Like we see in 1 Corinthians 8, all things are lawful for me. Not all things are beneficial, but all things are lawful for me. Right? Ain't that what he's saying in 1 Corinthians? But right here, we completely see that Paul is double-minded. One hand, circumcision nor uncircumcision avails anything. The Torah says if you don't get circumcised, you've broken the covenant. He says if you are circumcised, you got to keep the whole law. He tells you he's circumcised, but then he turns around and say, well, I'm free from the law of sin and death. Which one is it? So Paul should really look in the mirror, because on one hand, he tries to say, well, if you want to keep the law, that comes with a curse. Well, what about if you don't listen to Paul? What happens to you? Galatians 3:10, for as many are the works of the law are under the curse. For it is written, curses everyone who does not continue in all things which are written in the book of the law to do them. To do them. So if you're not keeping the law or doing the law, you're cursed. Just like in any situation that you find yourself in this planet, on this planet, you break the Constitution or the laws of your land, there's a punishment. A curse is a punishment. When you're living with your parents, you don't listen to them. They don't necessarily curse you, but there is a punishment for disobedience. In school, you get suspended for disobedience. You get referrals. At work, you get written up. You get fired. Punishment for insubordination. All these things, right? So Paul's trying to say, see, if you follow that law, you're going to be under a curse. But why doesn't he tell you if you keep the law, you're going to be blessed? You're going to be rewarded. Reward and punishment is how the world works. You do your job, you get paid. You don't do your job, you don't get paid. Galatians 1:8-9. But even if we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel to you than what we have preached to you, let him be accursed. So Paul turns around and says, oh yeah, if you keep that Torah, you're going to be cursed if you break it. But if you don't listen to him, he tells you the exact same thing. Let him be accursed, as we have said before. So now I say again, if anyone preaches any other gospel to you than what you have received, let him be accursed. And we know Paul's gospel is not what the disciples were taught by Jesus. It's got a different gospel. Romans 12:14. It's interesting that he's saying, let these people be accursed that don't listen to him. But in Romans 12:14, he says, bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse. So in Romans, he's saying, don't curse nobody. But in Galatians, he's telling you, let you be accursed if you don't listen to his gospel. Psalm 119 and 113. I hate the double-minded, but I love your law. James 4 and 8. We know James and Paul did not get along. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Cleanse your hands, purify your hearts. Can you do that under Paul's gospel? Or can you only believe in Jesus? Because Paul sure was telling people to keep the law and go to do sacrifices and everything. It's in Acts 21, right? He even told Paul to keep the law. He says all the things you said are nothing, but everybody's going to see that you walk orderly and keep the law. Acts chapter 21. Read it for yourself. Excuse me. So, what law is Paul referring to? So he doesn't say specifically, because he's all over the place, right? So you really got to try to understand what he's talking about, because his letters are really responses to people saying, hey man, this church, this pastor over here teaching this, and this church over here is teaching that. Paul's really like trying to put out fires in his letters. This is not God speaking to Paul. This is Paul telling his churches how to run, how to operate. But he just says stuff that he doesn't back it up, or he'll twist scriptures to try to back it up, right? So we're going to see him completely twisting a prophecy to fit a narrative that he just creates. What purpose, Galatians 3:19, what purpose then does the law serve? Like, why do we have the Torah? He said it was added because of transgression. Till the seed shall come to whom the promise was made, and it was appointed through angels by the hand of a mediator. Now, I'm not even going to get into appointed through angels by the hand of a mediator part, because that's okay. The part I want to focus on is it was added because of transgression. Till the seed shall come. He wants you to believe that this seed was Jesus, and Jesus is the end of that law that was given because of transgression. So when you say law, we're basically talking about what God tells you to do, right? The law of physics, right? There's a lot of laws in the universe, but concerning people, right? Was the law added because of sin? And what were the first laws given to man? Genesis 1:22, and God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let the birds multiply on earth. Was that added because of sin? It's definitely a commandment, but was it added because of sin? No, nobody has sinned yet. Genesis 2:15-17. Then the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to tend and keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. No one has sinned yet. So these laws are not given because of sin. Not eating from the tree deters sin. Actually, there was laws given to keep you from sinning. So the first laws were not added because of transgressions. Now, if you just start in the New Testament and don't read the Torah first, then you wouldn't know that. So he says, what purpose then does the law serve? It was added because of transgression. Well, the law was given to connect man to God and deter you from sin, right? Now, if we're talking about the Mosaic covenant and the laws given to Israel at Mount Sinai, what was the first thing told to them? Was the Mosaic law added because of sin? What were the first laws given under the Mosaic covenant? The calendar and the Passover. Exodus 12:1-3. Now the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month shall be your beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, on the 10th of this month, every man shall take for himself a lamb according to the house of his father, a lamb for a household. Not a word about sins concerning the Passover. Passover is for redemption. It's not for the forgiveness of sins. So the calendar was not given because of transgression. That was to set up them a calendar of how to regulate their lives for festivals and, holidays. So is he talking about the first laws or is he talking about the Mosaic law? Because neither one were given because of sins. So if he's talking about the laws of Noah, what about those, right? Do not eat the limb of a living creature. Do not murder. Do not steal. Do not commit sex crimes, rape, adultery, homosexuality. Do not commit idolatry. Do not commit blasphemy. Set up courts for justice. If Paul is referring to these laws, they do serve the purpose of deterring sin, but these are not the laws for Israelites concerning their covenant, although they are included, right? I don't think any Israelite would disagree with any of these laws. But there are many more. He also creates a false narrative about a promise made. So Paul is trying to say that the law was added because of sin. Now, these laws could be argued that they were added because of sin. For instance, if you're not allowed to eat animals, and then God says, well, since you're not supposed to be eating animals, I'm going to let you do it, but you got to make sure it's not alive, right? You got to drain the blood or make sure that, you're not eating the blood with the animal. Don't eat the limb of a living creature, meaning you can't just bite into it. You got to make sure it's dead, right? Don't murder. People were killing people, right? Don't steal. People were stealing everything, right? So on and so forth. So, but Paul's not talking about the laws of Noah. He's not talking about that. What's he talking about? What purpose then does the law serve? It was added because of transgressions till the seed shall come. Now, he wants the seed to be Jesus, and he tries to play on words, but we're going to see using the Greek and the Hebrew that he basically starts to lie about it, right? Galatians 3:16. Now to Abraham and his seed were the promise made. He does not say, and to seeds as of many, but as of one, and to your seed, who is Christ. Now, this shows Paul is either ignorant of Hebrew or he didn't know the Torah as well as he claims. And his Greek is not so sharp either, because let's deal with this. There's a few different words for seed and seeds in Greek and Hebrew, right? There are different variations of the word. Spermatize, 7 occurrences, English Concordance. Spermicin, 1 occurrence. What are these translations going into? Sperma, 4690. Seed, commonly of cereals. Offspring, descendants. NASB translation, children, conceived, descended, descendants, posterity, seed, seeds, right? Spermatized, 7 occurrences. Spermatized seed, from spiro, something sown, i.e. seed, including the male sperm, by implication, offspring, especially a remnant, figuratively as if kept over for planting. Issue, seed. You can look all these words up, right? Now, Luke 155 says to Abraham and his descendants forever. But the KJV just says, and to his seed forever. Now, is this talking about to Abraham and his seed, one, or his descendants, plural? What's Luke talking about? Because remember, Paul said he does not say and to seeds. Then why does the NAS translate that same word talking about descendants? Why does the KJV say seed and why does the NAS say descendants? Is one of them wrong? Or are they both referring to a multiplicity, right? is if you just say seed, it can mean many children. But which children is he talking about? Is it a future 1,000 years later, which ends up being Jesus from a Christian perspective, or is Abraham's descendants talking about the descendants of Israel? 2233 Zerah, Strong's Hebrew 2233 Zerah, 230 occurrences. Genesis 22:18, in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed because you have obeyed my voice. In your seed. Now, what is this seed? Genesis 17:9, my covenant, you and your descendants, plural, NAS. KJV, my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed. International Version, shall keep you and your descendants after their generations. What do you mean there if it's just a seed? Generations means kids. Jesus didn't have no generations after him. Now check this out. Genesis 26:4. I will make your descendants or your seed multiply as the stars of heaven. I will give to your descendants and all these lands, and in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. So in context, it's talking about descendants. Descendants. Keeps talking about descendants. And I will give all these lands to your descendants, to your seed. Now, are they trying to tell you that Jesus occupied all the lands? Because it says, to your seed, I will give all this land. The covenant is to you and your descendants. Read Genesis 17. This is for every male born and in their generations. So the seed mean, now, for him to try to play the seeds versus seed game is very interesting. He thinks he's slick, and he's talking to, non-Hebrew speaking people. If he's writing to the Galatians, there might have been some Jews scattered up in there, but overall, where is Galatia and what was their culture? So what word is this? Genesis 26:4, I will make your descendants Zaraka. I will make your descendants multiply, or I will make your seed multiply, right? As the stars of heaven. That doesn't sound like one. And I will give to your descendants all these lands, and in your seed or in your descendants, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Zaraka, in your seed, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed because you have obeyed my voice. So again, seed is also equivalent with descendants, plural, right? So let's blow this up real quick. Now look at this. 2233, Zaraka, your descendants. 2233, to your descendants. How is that possible? Descendants, Zaraka. 2233, in your seed, Zaraka. Here is translated seed, here is translated descendants, plural. 2233, 2233. This has a bait in front of it, meaning in your seed. This has a lamed in front of it, to your seed. This just says Zaraka. La Zaraka, Be Zaraka. Right here, Be Zaraka. In your seed, to your seed, your seed. All the same word. All just be lying. Romans 4:16, to all the descendants, plural. KJV, sure, to all the seed. So one is plural and one just says seed, but we know the context. Again, same situation back in Luke 155, to Abraham and his descendants and to his seed. So we see seed is equivalent to descendants when it's talking about this promise made to Abraham. because you got to read the context. He's going to give the land to all these seeds. So again, Englishman's Concordance, Wazaraka, Genesis 17:9. My covenant, you and your descendants. NAS, KJV, my covenant, therefore thou and thy seed. International, shall keep you and your descendants. Genesis 22:18. NAS, in your seed. KJV, in thy seed. INT, your seed, right? It's saying the word seed. Genesis 26:4. By your descendants. KJV, NAS is descendants. KJV is seed. INT is descendants. But what's the context? Who is he? What's he talking about? He's going to give land, right? He's going to give land to, in your seed, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. But your seed is going to be the same ones that I'm going to give your seed all these lands. That's the nation of Israel is going to be the one getting these lands. So he said, he has said, and to seeds as of many, but as of one, and to thy seed, which is Christ. Genesis 28:14, and thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth. Is that just one person? And thou shalt spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south, and in thee and thy seed all the nations of the family, all this, and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. So again, every time it's talking about seed, it's talking about a bunch of people. The dust of the earth spread abroad to the west and to the east and the north and the south. That doesn't sound like one person. Isaiah 61:9. Their seed shall be known among the Gentiles, and their offspring among the people. And all that see them shall acknowledge them, that they are the seed which the Lord hath blessed. So he's trying to play a word game that it doesn't say seeds, plural. It just says seed, but what's the context? Offspring, their offspring, their seed. They shall see them. It doesn't say they shall see him and acknowledge him. They shall see them and shall acknowledge them. The seed is them, plural. Isaiah 65:23. They shall not labor in vain nor bring forth for trouble, for they are the seed of the blessed of the Lord, and their offspring with them. But we see seed there. But again, context. They are the seed of the blessed of the Lord, and their offspring with them. So when Galatians 3:16 says, now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made, he saith not, and to seeds as of many, but as of one, and thy seed, which is Christ, he's lying. He's lying. So I'm going to beat the dead horse one more time. Wazaraka, root word, Zarak, or Zerah, right? Genesis 17:9, and God said to Abraham, as for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you throughout their generations. What's the word there? Genesis 17:14, and the uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. Genesis 21:4. Let's bring this home. Then Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God commanded him. Now, Isaac was the seed of Abraham. If we want to break it down to one person. One person. But Isaac did not spread abroad to inherit all the lands to the north, the south, the east, and the west. As it says right here. Thou shalt spread abroad to the west and to the east, to the north and the south, and be as the dust of the earth. Isaac didn't do that. But his son Abraham's children did. And I'm sorry, his son Jacob's children did. The seed of Isaac was Jacob and Esau, and Jacob's seed spread abroad to the east, west, north, and south. And that's what produced the nation of Israel. And out of that, they were told to be a light to the Gentiles. And that's where the blessings have come. So it's interesting that Paul will just lie to you if you don't fact check him. And that's all his letters are. They're not thus said the Lord. Paul is writing you his opinions and making up stuff and defending himself and tells you you're cursed if you don't listen to him. But tries to throw the Torah under the bus and say, oh, if you don't follow the Torah, you're cursed. It's funny, you got the same rules in your cult that you just made up. But the Torah that was given in front of everybody has rules and regulations, and you try to downplay those and make yours seem like they're superior. But you got the same kind of circumstances. You disobey you, oh, you're cursed. But if you follow the Torah, you're cursed, right? You're just fake. Paul was just fake. Psalm 105:6. O seed of Abraham, his servant, your children, you children of Jacob, his chosen ones. O seed of Abraham, his servant. Who is it talking about? You children of Jacob, his chosen ones. Look at that in one verse. Seed, children, ones. Context. Does that say Zerah? Does that mean one? In context, it can. But not when it says you children of Jacob, his chosen ones. So in Paul's little cult that he created, that turned into Christianity, that the Romans adopted, I told somebody the other day that Paul pretty much trumps the doctrine of the Gospels. Paul actually trumps Jesus in most Christian circles. Not all, but if you try to tell a Christian what Jesus said about the law, they're going to go to Paul to refute you. Give it a try. They're going to run right to Paul. So with that being said, these are slides 35 through 52. So Cause of Torah, Why I Left Christianity, Part 6, Jesus Died in Vain, slides 35 through 52. We will see you next time. Like and subscribe. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate everything. I appreciate the purchases of the books. May the Most High be with you, and y'all have a great day. Shalom.